Let's dive right into what you're going to be doing. Taking a look here at the outline, you'll be reading chapter 2 this week. Last week you read chapter 1, which was basic overview of news. Like, what is news? What are qualities of news? Like, how do you know something is a news story? Talked a little bit about the environment, the news environment that we currently find ourselves in. Talked about objectivity, and that's a tenet, core tenet of journalism. What makes something objective? Why do we need to be objective in journalism? So it was really a broad overview last week of journalism and reporting. This week in chapter 2, now we're focusing on how you start to prepare putting together a story. So we're going to be talking about interviewing in this chapter. What kinds of questions do you ask somebody? How do you prepare those questions? There's certain techniques and tricks that you use to get the best kind of information from your interviewee. And that's what this chapter is going through. That's a big piece of it. Another piece of this chapter is talking about the basic news story. So when we say, what is a news story? News in general, news writing is an umbrella term. You have hard news stories, you have profiles, you have op-eds like opinion-based journalism, you have explanatory journalism, different kinds of journalism. So this chapter does a very brief overview of what makes something news, and then how do you write a basic news story? A basic news story being the who, what, when, where, why, how. Some event happened, something happened, this is just covering it to let the person who's reading about it understand, what happened in this situation. That's the basic news story, and the chapter talks a little bit about that. What makes something, why write in a basic news story fashion, what constitutes as basic news. That's what this chapter is going. Let me take a quick look just to make sure I didn't miss anything else as I'm talking about this. Right. So, and then quotes. That was the last one. I knew there was a third. And then quotes, right? And that comes part of your interview. So when you are putting together a basic news story, you're interviewing somebody, you're interviewing for information, you're going to be including quotes, something that someone said word for word in that story, right? So this is talking about, well, what makes a quote? What kinds of quotes do you use? How do you take down those quotes? How do you make sure you get it word for word? It just gives you those basic guidelines when you're approaching this type of writing. So if you haven't been able to notice, really what we're doing in this chapter, and you'll see for this week and beyond, is we're starting to learn, giving you the tools, tips, techniques, tricks to actually go out and write your own news story. And this is the start really in week 2. You're learning how to interview because you got to interview to get some information. You're learning what makes a basic news story, kind of the structure of it. And then you're learning about the spices, which we'll talk about even later in this semester. And the spices are the quotes, right? What makes the story interesting? You're starting to get those ingredients to be able to put together a news story that you'll be writing in a few weeks. All right, so with that, after you finish this chapter for this week, and you did chapter 1 last week, you'll be taking the quiz. In the assignments folder here, I have a video that goes over the quiz, the specifics, how you take it, the information that you need to know. I will make a quick note here about that video though. In that video, I kept saying, oh, when you do this quiz in 2 weeks, you got 2 weeks to do it. That is incorrect. I made that mistake because I'm doing this video 2 weeks early, so I screwed up the dates, of course. But it is due at the end of the week, right? Like I said in last week's video, you have 2 weeks to get this in. So really, this is the week that you got to get it in. There should be no confusion though, because you'll always see it in due dates. When you click on the quiz itself, it tells you what the due date is, right? I just misspoke in the video, so just be aware of that. But you will have the quiz based on chapters 1 and 2. That video is in assignments that goes over that. Taking a look right here. You will also have an exercise due, which is also in this assignments folder. The exercise, I go over in the video how to do the exercise too, but it's based on an exercise in your book. That is due at the end of the week as well. Again, there's a video in this assignments folder that goes over both of those, so you'll be able to watch that and understand what you're going to need to do by the end of the week. And it's in the folder here, these assignments. You can also find assignments directly in this assignments tab here on Blackboard, or like I said last week, you could always go to due dates and find them there, and you can visualize where they are and see them. Read about your classmates on the discussion board, and please leave comments. This is not a requirement. I just think that it's nice for you. You're taking this class, like I said in last week's video. I know taking an online class, sometimes you're feeling a little, sometimes like isolated, right? Like you're in your own silo doing it by yourself, especially since we are never really meeting in person, or not in person, but live at the same time. So this just helps you understand like, who else is taking this with you. Where are your classmates? What are their backgrounds? What are their different experiences? Just helps you understand kind of the class cohort, and maybe hopefully connects you a little bit and understand that you're all going through this experience together. And some really, I haven't read them yet because this is 2 weeks in advance, but I always get really interesting, you know, biographies from you all. You're all unique, and it's just really interesting to see, who's taking this class. So thought it'd be interesting for you too. And of course, you can always leave comments and just connect with each other in that way. Lastly, read news every day. Again, not a requirement, but like I said in last week's video, this will make your life easier in the long run. The more you're reading professional journalists and you're starting to connect lessons that we're learning in class to what you're seeing in news stories, it's going to make you a better writer when you have to write it, right? You're like learning almost through osmosis, right? You're learning by absorbing, by viewing others. Some of those techniques are going to start to go into you, and you'll be able to execute them. So when I say news, again, I know I'm not getting real specific, but if you can read just like let's say New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Hartford Courant, CNN, like read some of those news stories that are popping up. Most of you probably in your social media feeds, but you can also actively go out and search for news. You can go to Google News and see what's new, right? A lot of you have apps, I know, and get news pushed to you. That's fine too. Social media, of course, that is part of news. And Snapchat Discover, I consider that news. It is the written form, though that is obviously a much abbreviated version from what you're doing. But still, that does count. I do want you just reading different sources of news, seeing how stories are put together in different mediums, in different formats. But if you're able to read more of a traditional news, and that doesn't mean paper necessarily, but if you're able to read news from, let's just say the Hartford Courant being Connecticut paper, right? From the Hartford Courant, just check out a few of those stories, every day. Again, it's just going to help you start to connect the lessons that we're learning in this class. All right, so go to this assignment. Your next step now is to go to this assignments folder, watch the video that goes over the assignments. Remember that I say 2 weeks it's due, but it is not. Going right here to due dates, we see exactly when it is due. I'm going to go to February because that's where we are here, right on the 6th. So you've got the quiz and the basic news story by 11:59 p.m. So check out that video so you know what is expected of you by the end of the week. And like I say in that video, and I'll say it again in this one, any questions, please let me know. Send me an email. You're confused about something, you're not sure about something in the chapter, whatever the issue is, please connect with me early. If we can't resolve it by email, we can of course have a video talk, or we can just call each other. But we can always talk if we need to. But otherwise, good luck with getting into the heart of the class. This is really where I think it really starts here in week 2. So you are on your way. You're going to start building those building blocks every week, and within a few weeks, you'll be prepared enough to start your first news story where you're going out in the field and reporting on something. And it really starts, I think, this week in this chapter, learning how the basic tenets of how to approach a story.